Welcome to Camera Ready and Abel, the podcast that explores the intersection of media change and personal growth. I'm your host, Barna Abel, and my calling is to help you tap into your superpowers, hone your message, and make an impact on the world. Today's episode is brought to you by the phrase, owning it, which means taking responsibility for your thoughts and actions. In the camera ready world, owning it takes on an extra layer because owning it is an intention and an energetic perception. It's how you show up and own the room. Here to discuss is my dear friend, casting director Sean DeSimone. It's a hat trick for you on the Camera Ready and Abel podcast. So could not be more thrilled, Sean, to spend some time with you.
So a hat trick means?
3 a 3. If you score 3 goals in hockey, it's a hat trick.
Oh, yes.
I don't know why, but it is. So we're celebrating a hat trick, and I'm tipping my hat to you saying, chapeau, Sean, you're awesome, and one of my favorite people, obviously one of my favorite guests.
Well, thank you so much. I feel like you and I have so many conversations, and I'm like, why? Every time we talk, it's a new idea for another episode. So, I feel like, why don't we just record all of our conversations moving forward? So that's why we're here again.
That'd be really funny if we started recording our calls, because we go deep and philosophical into the space. So cutting you off for one sec, let's talk about owning it, because you brought it up in a conversation recently.
Well, yeah, because I feel that we talk about this a lot when we're coaching together. And then we also talk a lot about it when we're not coaching, when we're like sharing notes, on a Friday afternoon, we'll call each other like, hey, this is what happened this week, etc. And I feel that owning it is so important, being on camera and being talent, but like owning the various versions too. Like there's owning the room, which we talk about a lot, which we talk about today. There's owning your skill set and embracing it, which we can talk about today. Taking responsibility and owning your talent, owning your uniqueness, your superpower, your special sauce, making it your own, we talk about a lot. So I think like the word own can go in many different ways also. And we had recently did a workshop together about 2 weeks ago, and we witnessed it in real life time. Mm-hmm. And we called each other. We're like, did you see what just happened? So it's really interesting to see when somebody owns their talent or their uniqueness or their superpower and takes it and runs with it. And
can I interrupt you right there? Because I love what you're saying. So can you describe what you're talking about and what we experienced in the workshop, our Hosting for Home Shopping and Brands workshop that we do once or twice a year? It's one of our favorite things. And it's really a transformational process because we take everybody in the class through the entire step-by-step process of working in the home shopping or brand space. And why did we feel we saw dramatic and wonderful ownership this time around?
Well, we had a student who came in expecting to be one thing because that's what she was comfortable doing for so long, and maybe even had been trained to be that for so long. And by working with us for those 2 days, and when we really sort of, for us, I felt like it was like we were giving so much and working so much with her, helping her figure out like what she needed to do to make it different than what she was doing before. And when she started to get it, I think she got it like at the end of Saturday, because we do Saturday and Sundays. And then Sunday she came in and she owned it. And we're going to go deeper on what that means. It was like literally a 360. And I think I had emailed you or called you and I said, guess what? Like I can actually hire her now. Because there were periods of times, and I told her, we're not using names, but I had told her even when we were on the in the workshop together, because we like to share in the room because that's how you learn as a group. And I said, listen, like I'm a big fan of yours. Like I believe in your skill sets. They're just not translating to the modern landscape of what you need them to be. And I think she was afraid, even though she could go there because she went there, I think she was afraid to own the new version, right?
I love what you're saying, Sean. It actually harkens back a little bit to your first episode on the podcast when we talked about authenticity. So this would be an example where it gets talked about all the time, but when you are taking ownership of yourself, your skills, your gifts, your superpowers, that now you are tapping into your true authentic self. And then ideally, then you're in a state of flow.
Yeah, and I mean, I take the note now for myself as I'm sort of experimenting with new things in my life that I have not done before, and bringing back parts of my life. Because when you and I met, documentary filmmaker guy, which I'm now getting back into this summer, and which by the way, you and Vinny have inspired me over the months as I've been listening to your podcasts.
Vinny
And Vinny's
Potestivo, we just wanted
yes. You two have inspired me because I think there was a point where there was a conversation that you two were having somewhere, somehow. Like, there's no excuse not to do something, whether it's because I had this big vision of, like, I had to make this big documentary right now. And I'm like, no. Remember what Barbara and Vinny had said? And I listened to it. And so now, like, my goal is like 4 minutes. And actually, not only is it only 4 minutes, it could be a 4-minute audio podcast. It doesn't even need to be a 4-minute visual, because I'm so afraid of, like, wait, I have to get a camera that I haven't touched in so many years, and cameras are so different. I'm so scared. Like, oh, no, I'm not a filmmaker anymore. I was a filmmaker 20 years ago. Now I'm a casting director. I was like, no shit. You know what? Like, I need to own it. I need to own the fact that I want to be a filmmaker again. And not that I want to be because I am a filmmaker, because that's why I'm owning it, but I need to own the fact that I can do it again. So it works for me just as much as it works for talent. Like, that's my talent. Like, I know how to do that. I was good at it at one point. To make sure that I own it. So when I go out there this summer, if I'm going to interview people in a documentary format and I'm not owning it, then there's a problem.
Okay, you just said owning your identity. I love that. That's the I am statement, right? That's why I keep Yoda on my desk. Not I hope to be, not I will be. It's what my therapist said to me. Now that's embodiment.
Mm-hmm.
It's when your soul and your body are now in sync, working together, which I love. That's incredible. And as you're saying, I am a filmmaker. I am specifically a documentary filmmaker. I also want to point out, at least what I heard there was you were also owning your fear and your overwhelm, but not letting that ownership. So you're acknowledging, but that wasn't an excuse to stop. Because sometimes I think people, this notion of owning our feelings can be an excuse so I own that I'm afraid, so therefore I'm going to quit. And it's like, no, that's not the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless that's like the right choice for you. But like, oh my God, I am a filmmaker and I'm owning the fact that all these giant steps it's overwhelming me. Allow me to move forward by making this manageable and actionable. That's really smart, Sean.
Thank you.
I love that. Thanks for that example. So we'll go back to in our world, in camera readiness and in media, it's really interesting. Everything we do is an exchange of energy, and it's about making an emotional connection. So if we're not emotionally connected to ourselves, owning our ideas, owning our ambition, owning who we are, owning our superpowers as well as our foibles, then we're by definition always going to at least fall short of our full potential, if not fall far short. That makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean to you to own the room, and why does that matter?
Well, so I feel like owning it is one thing. We can literally just talk about the word own for a really long time. We're not talking about the Oprah network, which is fabulous, but talking about own. So owning the room for me is so important because it's like going back to owning your talent, owning your uniqueness, your special sauce, your superpower. So when you bring that into the room, you then own the room versus taking the room over, which I always sort of describe. I don't know if I shared this on one of our many podcasts together. So there's a difference between taking the room over and owning the room. So when you own the room, you come in the room, it's you in a great day, it's you in your best mood. And when you are owning the room, you're taking control of the whole entire situation. Because I always like to tell people it's actually so we're going to talk about casting specifically, because that's what I do and that's what you do a lot of. And that's our sort of shared relationships. And we have done it together for a really long time. And I probably learned everything I talk about in the last 3 podcasts. You probably have told, or you have told me over the last 20 years that we've been working together. But you come in and you own the room, then like you have complete control of what happens. And I got to tell you, I bring 45 people in a room a day, or 45 people on a Zoom a day. I could, if I was really hustling. And it's really not my room. It's not my audition, it's yours. So if you come in and you take ownership of the room, then you have control of everything that's going to happen. Like everything. It makes you so much better. And it's different than taking the room over, by the way.
It's so much about energy and intention, because you could
Yeah.
have in your head, I own the room, meaning it's my room, it's not your room, right? This kind of playground, it's my toy, and that's not what this means. It's actually a very generous, energetic idea. It's setting up the intention of what you want to take place, and what happens when someone tries to take over the room.
So I always describe either like Kramer from Seinfeld, or I describe Joey from Friends. Like I just imagine him walking in the room in like audition room in the '90s on like Bank Street with some like casting director smoking a cigarette. Like comes in the room, he takes it over. That's when people walk in the room. Nobody wants you in the room when you take the room over. When you come in with the intention to own the room, it's just the sense of like, I got this. Let's do a great job together today. It's just shared experience. It feels like you're on an even playing field now for me. Because if you come in the room and you don't own it, then I'm waiting for you to own it. And if you don't own it, I probably direct you to own it, which I do all the time on Zoom now. You have no idea how much Zoom auditions have changed the dynamics in a room. And a
Let's
lot
talk
of
about that
people,
for a sec, because I want us to step back too. It's like, so one, we talked about taking over the room versus owning the room, but there is, for many people that haven't even gotten to the ownership part of it all, and that's when you come in really timid or looking apologetic in your body language, your stance, and you're not feeling worthy or that you deserve the room. That's fear based and lack of esteem. So that's a thing. So we want to get everyone into like, I own the room. I deserve to be here. I'm happy to be here. This is exciting. We're going to doing exactly what you just said. This is an incredible shared experience. Yay. So now let's talk about, that's a really big thing, helping people, whether it's an audition or just even in a meeting. How does somebody own their little square on Zoom?
so you want to start off with a smile, believe it or not. You want to enjoy being there. I coach people right before they hop on. I'm like, great, we'll see you in a few. So when you get on, understand everything's starting the minute the Zoom room opens, start engaging, start having a conversation. Because what I cast mostly for are personalities. I'm not real. I mean, I do actors as well, which is a very whole different conversation for like all intents and purposes today. Let's talk about like experts and TV hosts, etc., who are coming in the room to show off that they are chatty. They're coming in because they're conversationalists. They can talk forever. They have the gift of gab. So it should really start when the Zoom room opens, or when the audition room opens. When we used to start back in the day, the room opens, the door opens, everything starts. And when you come in the room and you own it, like I said, it puts you in a level playing field. Number one, for me, then I don't have to. Actually, I feel really great when somebody comes in the room and owns it, because I know that I brought in the right person. Because if you don't
Mm-hmm.
own it, and I have to like literally nudge you, like if I had like a little stick, like get up, like literally, like emotion is up, like energy is up. You want to be there, you want to have a really great time, because I think also there's a lot of Zoom fatigue these days. And I have my clients who everybody's got to get up and go to the bathroom, everybody's hungry. We actually try to see even more people now than we used to, because on Zoom that we can fly through it a little bit quicker, and we're not waiting for like someone to come in and put their bag down, and they have to get there, and we have to schedule them, and everyone just sort of pops up. So it's really important to just be present in the space that you're in, whether it's an in-person room, which we are going back to, or whether it's on Zoom. It's like the idea of like, I deserve to be here, right?
Absolutely. And what you just said about being present. I want to ask you a quick question though, because when we're in a room together, you feel it when somebody walks in the door and they change the energy and they've set the intention and understanding. Because another part of this is understanding you have all of us have the capacity to change the temperature and choose what you want, what you want that temperature to feel like in the room. Is another way we describe that. Can you feel that shift when you're on a Zoom call?
I was just about to say, well, but guess what? You can feel it. Yes, 100%, like 1,000%. It's like the minute someone starts engaging on a Zoom or a video chat, you get that same exact feeling that they own it, that they're going to own their challenge. They're here because I invited them here. I invited you here, so now you need to come in and you need to take the responsibility to own the room, own your special sauce, your superpower, whatever it might be. I gotta tell you, I feel it 100% on Zoom. Like I could be. I mean, maybe there's a new skill set that we're learning as Zoomers or on people or casting directors on Zoom. It's a whole new skill set, but I can feel it, and not only do I feel it, my clients feel it.
Well, I want to stop right there and actually a little note to managers, leaders, heads of department who are listening. It does start at the top. And if I can toot our collective horn, because we do that in that workshop, right? That we created a virtual workshop because of the pandemic. And everyone says it. If we create a community within like the first, 10 minutes of that class, people are engaged. And it's because, if I do say so myself, it starts with us. And we understand the responsibility of that and the possibility of that, and that it exists. And we can do it by showing up, and we bring the energy and our enthusiasm to that class. It's my favorite thing to teach. And people are suddenly like, wow, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to be spending the weekend. And and everybody feels the shift because there's no checking out, because we're showing up for you. And it's such an amazing, beautiful, powerful transference of energy.
But that's why this whole thing started. And that's why when, I always come up with little ideas of new podcast conversations with you. I'm like, Barbara, let's do this one. Because that class that we do together really is a great example of we have 10 people and everybody signs in and they all have very different skill sets. They all come from very different levels and they all want to do the same thing. And people come in really confident. Some people come in really nervous. And we really see over a 2-day period of somebody who might not be owning it, might be a little bit of a hiding not even hiding in their screen, but hiding in the corner of their screen. And then all of a sudden we see these people who have bloomed and they don't want to stop and they want to keep going. I want to share a quick example. I don't remember if I've shared this on your podcast or not, because you and I work together so frequently that I love this example of owning the room. There was a woman who you and I both know who works down in Atlanta. She's no longer in Atlanta. And she is a perfect example of someone who came in the room and owned it because she understood. I had worked with her before and I had coached her before. So she knew that she has that 10 minutes in the room to sort of own it and warm up the room and set the temperature and all that fun stuff that we've talked about. So she got that. But when she got there, and by the way, my client wasn't really that convinced that they even needed to see her because they had not met her in person. And that's what really stinks in the casting process is, you call me a unicorn and I appreciate that so much because I literally really go out of my way to give everybody a chance beyond the tape because it's hard to make a tape. It's hard to own the tape. So I always want to give somebody that next shot, whether it's Zooming with me, Skyping with me, or hopping right over to Zooming and Skyping with a client. But this example that I'm giving you is a real life event that happened pre-pandemic. And she knew that she was going to own that room. She knew it. She knew that she owned her body because it was literally, she was going to present something in the fashion space that she was wearing. So she actually owned everything from head to toe. She owned the room, the energy, but she even owned her physicality. She knew that she felt so great when she walked in the room. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when she walked in the room, she owned the room. She set the temperature in the room, and it's not sticky at all. Set the temperature in the room, which led to someone saying, "Well, I really love your dress," which then led, "Well, thank you so much. I love it too. I feel so great in it." And Barbara, you talk about I statements all the time. So when she said that she loved how she felt, everything, that's owning it. She owned every single thing. And it was literally a 15-minute conversation that led to a callback. She actually did not really need to do what she was invited to come to do. Yes, she got there and we did it, but it's to me, I just share this example over and over and over again because it's the perfect example of somebody who literally took it and ran with it. And when I say own the room, not only do I want you to own the room, I want you to take it and run with it also. Like that's step 2. You don't just walk in the room and I've owned it, I'm here. There's more. So take it and run with it. And that's what she did. And to me, somebody who could get a callback for like a gigantic job by just owning the room, owning herself, owning her confidence in how she felt in that dress, owning her special sauce, owning her unique talent. It just was the most insane example. And I really, really, truly believe in it because I've seen the opposite also. And you and I've talked about this in workshops, etc. before, where I see people who don't own it and don't take advantage of the room and don't make tweaks and don't make changes and don't share enough about themselves. But they're great talent, but that doesn't matter. Like, we don't care. Not that we don't care. I care about everything. I'm a unicorn, remember? But the client, it's not enough for them.
Yes, well, let's point that out because that's a fundamental core philosophical premise of my entire business is that, your skills get you in the hard skills get you in the door, your soft skills get you the job and keep you the job. So that's a fundamental mistake people come up with all the time that think that the job is about the doing of the job. The job is always combining your being with your doing. It's the same thing. It's like, I don't come for your speech if I'm watching a TED Talk. I'm coming for how your TED Talk makes me feel. I care about how your keynote affects me, impacts me. I think that's the part that we're missing. And so when you're saying that somebody comes in, they're really talented, they have great skills, but they're not owning it, I'm hearing they're not engaged, they're not present, they're not curious, they're actually not generous. Like it's like being a bad guest or going on a date and really not caring about the person you're on a date with.
Oh, that's so interesting because that's what it feels like in the audition room. And that's what it feels like on Zoom when it's so crazy that you just said that because you asked me what it feels like when someone's owning it. And you just literally put it into perspective for me. When someone comes in the room and they're not owning it, it feels like a bad date. It feels like, oh, Lordy. Oh, no. What do
Can I phone a friend? How do I get out of here?
Yes. I guess who has to be the friend? Me. Because I'm the casting director. So my clients, if they're not owning it and my clients are feeling that bad date vibe, guess who's got to be the waiter who comes in and starts telling jokes? It's me. Seriously. If you own it and you have to own it, guess what? So do I. And I believe that 100% that I own every single audition that I run. I own being on this podcast today. I really do. I did a little research. You and I have organic conversations. So I'm like, but I came in here owning it. Like, I have to feel very confident going on camera, ready, and able. If I don't feel confident, then this podcast is going to suck. Right. So, and I don't want that to happen. So it's a shared responsibility. And when you had just said that bad date, I felt it. And I felt, because also keep in mind, I just spent 7 months in virtual callbacks weekly. 7 months of virtual callbacks. So it's like I've seen everything like from A to Z. And when I'm feeling like, I have to save it because they're not owning it, that really sucks for me too. So it's definitely like a shared experience.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you about that. Have you seen it change and evolve? Because especially in the space, in the home shopping and brand space, you've owned the space for 15 years. Have you seen the shift, the ownership requirement?
Oh yeah. I mean, but it's the same thing across the board with just TV production in general. Like if I'm casting for home shopping, yes. The brands, yes, but when I cast for History Channel, when I cast for A&E, they want people. The vague requirements that I get from my clients these days. I'm on a job that I'm going to start today that I'm super stoked about, but I'm like, can you all tell me what you want to see on these tapes? Because like we got to get moving. But they're like, well, we don't know. Like they want they want us or the talent to figure out what to deliver on the tape. Like,
but fundamentally, that's some part of ownership. Whatever the choices you're making in that conversation, in that room, in that audition, you have to own it. That goes back to that great, Philip Seymour Hoffman quote, just explaining what it is to leave it all in the room, because that's That's another way of owning it, right? It's like when you walk out, I know I just left it all in the room. And so you're saying that clients want to see more of that. We need to feel it more. The stakes are higher. It's so much more competitive than when we started.
The stakes are higher, and the talent that I'm casting are usually responsible for creating, their own, having an opinion, having a point of view, creating their own, whatever it might be, coming on set. And at the end of the day, I don't do a ton of, reading off of a teleprompter scenario. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed where we're looking for clients to come in, we're looking for talent to come in and come in with ideas. And in the home shopping space and the brand space specifically, yes. I mean, it has changed for me in the past 15 years. I mean, well, the space has changed. I'm not responsible for how the network has changed. They did that on their own. But I am responsible for finding the talent that goes on that network. And I have been responsible for finding the talent that goes on those networks for 15 years. So I guess at the end of the day, I do have some sort of say in how it has evolved. And yeah, we are looking for people to sign onto that Zoom. It's right away, the smile, there has to be a smile. That's how you own the Zoom right away, is I'm here. Because a lot of people don't realize they're even here yet, which is like the craziest thing. And I always tell people, like, when the Zoom is on, you are on. And you're on the whole entire time.
Let's talk about that, because that's a fundamental we've talked about forever, that you are on and ready to go before it starts. Mm-hmm. Because like any performer doesn't warm up on stage. You walk on that stage and the show's already begun. You're warmed up backstage because you can't walk on flat. So the same thing here, because whether they realize it or not, so this is just science too, is even though it's imperceptible, we actually, our subconscious can register that shift in the energy. So you've come on unsmiling, and then now it's like, oh, now I'm on. That's a negative message to our brains. Pardon me, what?
Yeah, but it's a light switch.
It's literally a light switch, and we see it, and then so that's a no. Fundamental 101, smile and crack yourself up, because a fake laugh leads to a laugh. So if you just do some warm-ups and, tongue twisters before you begin, and you just do it like, you'll be laughing. You'll be smiling when you start.
Yeah, I mean, I put myself on tape for a few things, and
thank you for the segue, because I want to ask you how this is now showing up for you in your emerging acting career. Because when we started your first interview on Camera Ready and Able, talking about authenticity, you had not gotten your first speaking role, and now you're up.
Which I now have.
Exactly. So talk about, like, you're growing, and this is part of you taking ownership of your talent.
I owned that tape. I was giving you, well, they were asking for a very specific thing, which I believed I was. Like physically, they were looking for an Italian, Eastern European. Like literally, that's what I am. So I was like, if I don't get this and there's hundreds and hundreds of people who probably said the lines just a lot better than I did, but I made a really great tape. I really did.
Tell us about it.
I really owned it. I relaxed into it. I turned it on. I told a nice little personal story. They didn't ask for any of that. But you know what? You and I come from a world where personal stories and getting to know who you are as people really matters. In the scripted space, that's not so important. But I was like, well, damn it. There's going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Italian, Eastern European men in their late 40s, early 50s who could say pronto, which was the line that I had. And I don't speak Italian, so I practice rolling my R's. But whatever. But for me, like, I literally sat down and I talked to the lens, and I shared a little bit about myself. And I said, this is why I would like to be considered for this opportunity. And I got the call. And I was like, whoa, I just got a speaking role. And I have only been acting for less than a year. And it's not really my day to day, which is, now coming into play in the getting back into the film space. Like tonight I go to one of my classes. I'm taking like an editing class to prepare myself to then take the, and it's like, here I am at 50 years old. I mean, I haven't made a movie in 25 years, 25 something years. But like, today I'm a filmmaker. Like, I want to get back into this. So I need to own every thing I'm doing, right? So yeah, that's how it plays into my own life. But I gotta tell you, I gotta own being a casting director every friggin' day. I'm on the phone with a client convincing them that I'm the right casting director, because you and I both know there's a lot of other people out there that do what we do to different extents. Like, I feel like there's very specific spaces that I probably am top tier in, but there's a lot of spaces that I'm being considered for that there are lots of other people that do this. And when I'm on the phone with the client, the reason why they either hire me or don't hire me probably has to do with the fact that if I've owned it or not. Like, when I'm having this conversation, am I sharing enough about myself to make me feel or sound confident in my superpowers, which I have tons of superpowers as a casting director. Like, I'm very confident as a casting director. So I have to own every conversation, but I also have to own it when I'm talking to the talent, because that's how they trust me. You know, when I'm on the phone sharing what this job opportunity is, because I also work in a spaces where I'm not only just casting for gigs where you come and you do 10 episodes and then you go do another 10 episodes and then you go to 10 episodes somewhere else. Like, I'm working in environments where, like, I'm really helping people understand if this is the right opportunity for them, because it is a long-term situation, which literally blows my mind. Because when you and I met 18 plus years ago at a coffee shop on Smith Street, I will never forget it. Like, I was not who I am today. You know, you saw something in me, right? So, which was great. But like, every day I am owning it. I'm not on this podcast today preaching like, you must do this, and I'm just going to sit back and be Sean and watch. No, like, I have to participate. You have to own this podcast, which you have done, by the way, which is fantastic. I mean, you had not done a podcast before, but guess what? You woke up one day and you said, I'm a podcaster. So now you're a podcaster. You know, owning it just comes into play in so many different forms, whether you're going on like a blind date, you're going on a job interview. We're talking about being on camera specifically today, because that's what we do most. But it's like being confident, but not like obnoxiously confident.
Well, that's arrogance.
Yeah. Yeah. Which we have seen a ton of times. You know, I just like watching people. Like, I love like human interaction. And that's why when we do our sessions together and we saw that one transformation 3 weeks ago, I was like, wow, like, this is no joke. Like, she literally was so set in her ways. I don't want to say stuck, because I don't think she was stuck in her ways. She was set in her ways. She was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
She was very, very comfortable, which, by the way, means you're coasting, and we don't coast anymore. We don't coast in TV. She was comfortable, and I was like, gosh, I want this to work for you so bad. Like, so bad, because I had been putting her on tape for other projects leading up into our workshop. And I was like, damn it, if you would just own it, you could actually get yourself the job here. And I shared that note, Barbara, with her agent. Because, you know, in the world that we live in, sometimes we don't always communicate with the talent right away. We always have to, protocol-wise, deal with agents and managers. So that was really one of the first times that I was able to actually have a one-on-one with her, because now she was in our room. She was on our workshop, and there was no agent. There was no middle person sharing the note. Like, I shared this note 1,000 times with her representation, but she never changed. But then when I shared the note with her one-on-one, and she heard it from me, and then she took the note and ran with it, because I keep saying, let's not just talk about owning it. You got to own it, and then you got to run with it. And then when she ran with it, I was like, damn, like, I get what it means more now than I ever thought that it meant. And like, I literally want to call her up and give her a job. Like, I can't wait to find a job for her. Not as a recruiter, because I can't wait to find an opportunity to put her on tape again, because when she does it, when she goes and puts herself on tape and she owns it, she's going to be fantastic. And this is the reason why I will never, ever, ever, ever forget the example from the host in Atlanta, who came up to audition for me. And when she owned that room and she walked in that room and said she felt so great in that dress, which, by the way, I've shared details with you before, which led to all of this fun conversation, which then led to her learning that she played sports and where she played sports, which meant that she led to her playing sports with somebody's brother who was also in the room. So like all of this, if she didn't come in the room owning it, she would have never got to, oh my God, my brother? If she would have just walked in the room and just waited, which a lot of people do, they just wait. They wait. They wait to be told what to do. And it's interesting in the Zoom rooms as well, Barbara, because now we're doing Zoom groups, right? Everybody auditions separately, but remember, it's so weird the space that we're in. Oh my God. Remember we would schedule people every 10 minutes?
Oh, I remember when it was like 7 minutes and
7 minutes. So then every 7 minutes, hey Barbara, welcome. Here's what you're gonna do today. Have fun. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Hey, Sean, 7 minutes later. Now, what we do is we bring in like 4 to 6 people at once. We do the, hey, how are you? Here's what you expect today. And then everybody goes off and then comes back in one by one. That's an interesting space for me because that's where you see who is owning the space and who is not. Some people are just waiting because they think they're just being spoken to. They're just being lectured to. They're being told what to do, which they are, but it's not one-sided. If I'm explaining to you, Barbara, what's going to happen today, and if Vinny and Joe and Jack and Jim were all on the Zoom with us, all of us have to be participating in that shared listening exercise. I'm not just talking to Barbara. I'm talking to you all, and sometimes it's just Barbara who's owning her square, and that is very telling, and it really then bleeds over to the audition, and then my client's like, wow, well, we're not interested.
Just as you said that, I was envisioning, for years, even going back, maybe starting when we did Queer Eye originally, and then, but so many panels and panel shows since, you're on camera even when you're not speaking. You're in that audition even when you're in the soundproof booth or whatever we call the Zoom holding pen. Your energy has to be that, like, I'm here and doing this. But that's a mistake a lot of people make it so that if you're not talking, I just remember, Carson was going to stand out no matter what. But I remember him being on, one panel after another, the endless Queer Eye auditions, and how many people were just tuned out and zoned out. I'm not talking, so I'm not really here. And they would, you can even think of the physicality. People's like heads go down, they start twiddling their thumbs, their shoulders hunch. And always in the Queer Eye auditions for the, fashion guy, Carson was always sitting, like great posture, front and center, looking ahead, smiling, making some pithy comment, always, and never repeating himself, always so glad to be there.
That was my first day with you ever. That was my first day as a casting director. That's when I started casting, was you invited me to the chemistry tests because you had already been pretty far into Queer Eye at that point. You were just sort of like, I think, finalizing like maybe 2 more roles, and you invited me to the chemistry test. And I do remember seeing somebody on the very end. I think it was like Carson was there. Maybe like it was pretty set. I think we were just filling like the cultural role, and maybe we were filling the cultural role.
The endless cultural casting. Yes,
we were filling the cultural role. You brought me on to fill the cultural role and the interior design role, and I do remember Carson was in the middle, and I remember everything about that day. And literally, it was day 1 for me, and like I do now remember like someone sitting in the corner and not being very present, because it's like, number 1, maybe he was intimidated. Number 2, he was on the end, right? So, he could have owned it a little bit better. Maybe he would have been.
Yeah, it's a lesson for everyone. But you have to remember, it's like, now again, as you say that, I visualize whether it's Olympic swimming or Olympic, track and field, or the 10 meters, somebody's got to be on the ends. You know what I mean? Like, everybody doesn't get to be in the center 2 or 3 lanes. Make it what it is. Own that space. And then you can come call us, because we have a bunch of strategies we could teach on how you adapt to whatever the situation is.
I have one more. I just thought about something.
Go right ahead, dear.
We're talking about owning it. Let's briefly touch on the fact that you can also own your mistakes.
Sean, I knew there was just one more gem in that tiara
There's
coming
one
out.
more.
That's so
That's
good.
one more.
So good. Yes.
Because people make mistakes all the time.
Yes.
And it's okay to pick the ball back up and keep going. And we talk about that constantly in TV hosting. And we talk about it a ton in the home shopping space. I mean, I see it all day long. I always tell people, like, I actually don't even know what that humidifier looking thing behind you, your little air conditioner that goes like this. You have what, if anybody can see this video right now, Barbara has like a little air, like if you were to present that Dyson to me, I have no idea about that Dyson. So if you made a mistake, I couldn't even tell, to be honest with you. And I learned that by doing stage work, because not only do I do the film and TV stuff,
you're a Renaissance man, Sean DeSimone.
I also do stage work. Yeah, I'm pretty involved in the Middle Collegiate Church in the East Village, and we put on these stage plays. And I make mistakes constantly. I'm like, what did I just do? But I was like, guess what? The audience doesn't know that they didn't write the script. They don't know that it was a mistake. So if you show your flaws, then you obviously, it's apparent that you made a mistake. But even if you do make a mistake, I have literally caught people in a home shopping audition. Like, I've literally watched them like turn into Jell-O and like have to literally like go up there and be like, hey, don't worry about it. Keep going. Like, so, it's okay to make a mistake and then own the mistake. If you own the mistake, it's even more impressive than if you make the mistake and then, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Well, 100%. And this is just to clarify for everyone listening. One, okay, the home shopping space is live, and news tends to be live. Even in pre-recorded spaces, mistakes happen. There's no perfection is unobtainable, and it's a vague ideal anyway. But no matter what, so the point is, mistakes happen all day long, whether it's you making a mistake, lighting cues are missed, the stuff happens all over the place. So to your point, we don't remember the mistake, we remember the recovery. And golden moments often happen in the recovery. And to that point, Heather Hands, who's a psychotherapist who was on an episode previously called Loving Your Anxiety, had such a great tip about when you're visualizing, your whatever you're going to go do when she does television, don't visualize yourself being perfect. Allow yourself the space and grace to picture making a mistake and moving on with ease and humor and comfort and being relaxed, so that you're training yourself to feel good with it, because stuff will always happen in life.
Yeah, that's real life, and that's when we really believe that you're a real person, and that's what we care about.
I love what you just said, people. Owning your mistakes. Yeah. That's so great. I'm going to end it on that note, Sean D. Remind us where we can see you. So
we have my website, SeanDeSimoneCasting.com. We have my Instagram, Sean_DeSimone_casting. We have LinkedIn. I have a group on LinkedIn, Sean DeSimone Casting. I have a group on Facebook, Sean DeSimone Casting. I tweet at DeSimone Casting. And you can find me roaming around these village most days. But I'm available for coaching one-on-one. You and I do our workshops together, which is really fantastic. Virtual is big for me, so I can work with folks across the country. I can work with folks internationally. And I also am willing and able to go back into a room potentially sooner than later. So we'll see where that lands. But yeah, so I'm available for lots of different things: your casting needs, your coaching needs, your chatty needs,
your emotional rescue. Well, I love and adore you, Sean DeSimone, and I love and adore you, the audience. So thank you for listening to Camera Ready and Able. Please be sure to visit my website, abelintermedia.com, and download my free ebook, 12 Tips for Success on Camera. And as always, please be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already.